Thank you. This is the April 6th meeting of the Carver Select Board. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the Select Board page on our website for a listing and applications. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would someone like to read the community prayer?
I'll take care of it.
Thank you, Mr. Belton.
Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we have been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek. And keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
And now it's time for citizens' participation. Is there anyone in the audience here for that purpose? Seeing no movement to the microphone. Our next item of business is at 7:05, but it's 7:02 now, so I suppose we should wait because that's a public hearing. Is there someone here to represent 80 Makepeace, Chapter 61A, intent to convert? Would you like to come up to the mic, sir? And just state your name and...
My name is Fred Medeiros. Thank you, Madam Chair. Board.
You'll have to say that into the mic.
Sorry, Madam Chair. My name is Fred Medeiros. I'm the attorney from 80 Makepeace.
Okay. And could you hold the microphone really close so the folks at home can hear you?
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
As you can see, there's two lots which are requesting to be converted on the plan, one of which is approximately 71,000 square feet. The other one is approximately 11,000 square feet. They're shown as Lot 1 and Lot 2 on the plans which are submitted to the Select Board. It's the intent to convert these properties to a residential use. If the board does have any questions regarding this application, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do the board members have any questions? Mr. Belton.
Yeah, is this going to be, are they going to change this road? It looks like the road curves around here. Are you taking that little road out? Are you reconfiguring it?
So it's actually a little bit confusing. So the road which is shown on the plan is the old layout of Wareham Street. So in 1952, the county commissioners relocated Wareham Street to its current location, and they discontinued the usage of Old Wareham Street, but they actually never formally discontinued it and transferred the ownership of it. So technically, that roadway is still publicly owned, even though it doesn't necessarily exist on the ground at this point in time. So that's where the property line runs, but there's no longer a utilized roadway there.
Okay, so that's property's basically been split, and that is a public easement now, still?
Correct. So in the county commissioner's decree from 1952, they specifically voted not to discontinue that roadway. So in theory, if they wanted to locate the roadway there again, they could do that. But it still is owned as a public way, and the land is on either side of that way. Okay, now,
With these lots, how many residential homes are you going to build? Do we have that amount?
It would presumably only be two. There'd be one on the 71,000 square foot piece. I believe in its current configuration on the 11,000 square foot piece, there could only be a one bedroom house. They'd have to do a nitrogen loading easement or some other mechanism to have a 2 or 3 bedroom house on that lot. But at this point, it would only be two houses. It'd be one on either side.
We have minimum lot sizes for the town of Carver. You know
Correct.
that,
So
right?
the 71,000 square foot is a conforming lot under
Right.
current zoning. The other lot is a grandfathered lot because it's been that way prior to zoning. So it's been that way. I think 80 Makepeace owned it since 1909. It's divided by that roadway.
Mhm.
So it's a valid non-conforming lot, but they will have to submit documentation to the building department to obtain a building permit and verify that is a grandfathered lot.
Would and are these going to be regular houses, or are they going to be affordable housing or condos or?
It's the anticipation right now. It should be 2 regular single-family houses.
Okay. I kind of would like to wait on this, as maybe we could look towards CPA money to possibly purchase these properties for affordable housing units here. I think we have to look at some options. So, just my opinion.
Thank you, Mr.
I think
Belvin.
the only, can I address that one quickly? I think the only issue logistically is there's no town water at these properties. So between the setback, between the well and the septic, I don't think you could fit any more than a single family house on either lot. I just don't think it would logistically could work. I mean, you could do a single family house there. I don't know if that was what you're anticipating for affordable housing.
We've done it before, so.
Okay.
But I do think you're correct. There could only be single-family homes there.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Does anyone else have any questions, comments? Mrs. Bogart?
Do we have a assessed value of the lot?
Well, it's in 61A, so the assessed value is minimal. It's only a couple $100. I don't know what the actual fair market value.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's what I meant.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's not in the assessor's record.
Okay. I like to know the cost to the town before I decide something, and I'd like to see it too.
Anyone else? Mr. Hoffman?
Quick comment slash suggestion, maybe?
You have to speak
No,
into the mic.
A quick comment slash suggestion. I noticed that one of the pieces of paper we have here is the recommendation that the select board exercise the town's option to purchase the property, and Jim Walsh, Brooke Monroe, and Craig have all said no about this. In the future, can we have maybe one or all 3 of them show up and explain why they said no? I'm still relatively new, so I'm learning. Like, they would know this a lot better than I would.
Sure. So we can ask one of them to come or all. But my understanding is, if it still is going on, this began with the TOPS committee, the Town Owned Properties Committee, and I think it morphed. I think that still exists, but it also morphed into this because someone needs to be able to figure out, are these properties that the town would like to buy, and those positions, the planning director, conservation agent, and assessor, seemed like the people with the most knowledge. And my understanding is they meet and make that assessment. But I guess, Mr. LaFawn, could we in the future maybe have one or all of them?
Sure, happy to do that. I know
Great.
we happen to have one here tonight, but he's not here to speak on this, so I wouldn't want to
Okay. No,
put him on
that's.
the spot.
I don't want to put him on the spot either.
Okay. Sarah?
Thank you,
Hey.
Mr. Belvin.
Yeah, kind of goes along that. Do we have any meeting minutes for this TOPS committee? I mean,
It's
The-
a staff committee. It's
Well,
not a
I
committee
think-
committee.
I think we should have meeting minutes for this committee, especially that, I mean, if they're proposing we not exercise it, we should have.
It's not the top. I'm sorry, Mr. Belvin. It's not the TOPS committee that's proposing this. It's these 3 department heads.
Well, this
The TOPS committee is made up of those 3 departments and someone from various other departments. So this is an interdepartmental meeting.
okay.
They're not. It's not a committee that takes minutes.
Well, you said TOPS committee, so I just want to make sure that
I
we're
said
talking
that
about 2
started
separate
that
meetings.
started the process when those 3 broke out of the TOPS committee to be the people who looked at 61A land for us.
So again, I think that we shouldn't exercise this at this time. I think we should evaluate the property for a number of different issues, not just for future planning, but also for affordable housing, because we have a quick need for that, and this could be an excellent opportunity for that to happen. So I'd have to vote against exercising it at this time.
Okay. Anyone else? Would someone like to make a motion, one way or another? There's no motion one way or another to exercise our right or not to exercise our right to purchase.
I'll make a motion to exercise our right to purchase the property.
To exercise our right to purchase the property? Or to
I'm sorry.
refuse?
Sorry.
That's all right. I didn't
Not
think
purchase the
I didn't know
property.
if I heard you right. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Belvin, we have a public hearing that's a little overdue, so if you could keep it short, I'd appreciate
All right.
it.
We just can't start the public hearing beforehand. We can start it later. That's
Yes,
fine.
but I don't
But,
want to drag
so-
this out all night.
It's okay. So if we don't exercise it right now, okay, is there a time frame of when we have to exercise it, or just
Yes,
want to
we-
know is
We have 120 days from when they bring this to us. I don't know when that clock started ticking, but that's the time frame.
do we have?
Actually, just a quick clarification. I believe within 30 days, the select board is supposed to give notice of intent of their right
That's
to
right.
appraise the property.
You're right.
And then they have 120 days to complete the purchase from
That's
there.
right. You're correct. I
So
stand
it's
correct.
30 days to appraise and then 120
Right.
days to close.
When did that time frame start?
It starts from whenever I submitted the paperwork, which I believe was
March
20 some odd days ago.
No, March 9th, I think, is the...
So I believe you're supposed to exercise your right to appraise the property within the next 5 to 10 days, and then from there you would decide whether or not to purchase the property. You have an additional 90 days after that 30-day period.
I think we should appraise the property. It's an opportunity. There are money in CPA funds for it, and we're going to have a special town meeting anyways in the fall, it appears. So I think we should exercise our option and get an appraisal on this property.
Okay, there is a motion and a second on the floor, though, so I believe we need to vote on that. I will add my 2 cents here. I think that if this is something that we're interested in looking at, I think if we get this in advance, it's better to look at it in advance rather than to decide on the spur of the moment. You know, is this something identified on the open space and recreation plan? Is this a good place for affordable housing? Those kinds of questions. It's hard to make that decision the night when we're supposed to decide.
Well, we just got this in our packet. It's not like we got this 20 days ago when they submitted it. We just got it in our packet today. I should say we got it a couple of days ago when our packet was there, but I mean a couple of days. And now this is the first time we have the opportunity to talk about it. So, I mean, we should have got this 20 days ago when they submitted it, so that we can go ahead and say, hey, let's get an appraisal on this. We could have discussed it at the last meeting we had.
Well, we
So-
could have. An alternative avenue would be to study the open space and recreation plan, find out where the best location would be to place affordable housing. You know, there are documents out there. We have an affordable housing document that might suggest to us where those places would be best located.
And I've
And
read
I
those,
think
Sarah.
that's the kind of homework we need to do before we make this sort of spur of the moment decision. So there is a motion and a second on the floor.
One other real quick question.
Mr. Hoffman.
So, everything that you had just said about doing your homework and the background on that, would these 3 people have done that, and is that why they say no?
That's my
In the
understanding.
past, again,
Well, I certainly did when I had one of those roles. Yeah, I mean that was one of the reasons we asked those department heads, because they, in theory, are supposed to know those
Right.
things. So,
does Rick have any input on this? Has he been,
sorry,
Mr. LaFond have any input on this as far as
Mr. LaFond, do you have any
background?
I
input?
don't have background, but obviously if there are logistical issues and if the board wishes to have an appraisal done, we don't have the opportunity to go to CPA for that to happen. We have to have funds on hand available to do that in order to comply with the requirements, the time requirements. So I'm not saying that we couldn't do everything we could to accommodate that, but that's that will always be a logistical issue, a question, if it's not something that the board feels really strongly about. But these are submitted to our permitting departments. The permitting department did, as I say, within a timely manner, provide a recommendation. If there's a different process you'd like to use, that would be fine, but obviously the goal is to have our professional staff give you
Right.
recommendations before your meeting. So again, if you wish to address it in a different way going forward, I'm more than happy to do that. But I know this was the process that had been outlined many years ago, and it seemed to be working reasonably well. But
Correct. That's my understanding too. And don't get me wrong, Mr. Belbin, I'm a huge advocate for affordable housing. I'm just suggesting that this may not be the place. And also, frankly, I prefer affordable housing in a mixed setting, so that no one knows that those are the affordable homes. I don't like having people point fingers, and if we make 2 affordable homes right on Wareham Street, then everyone knows.
Well, you know what everyone knows about Miss Lily Way. I mean, that's an affordable. It was publicized highly. Okay, as an affordable unit.
This conversation's
So-
getting out of hand here. We do have a
Oh.
motion and a second on the floor.
Madam Chair,
Mr.
ju-
Townsend.
just a quick comment that I think might be helpful going forward.
Mhm.
And I do think, just to follow up on Mr. Hoffman's suggestion, it would be a good idea when we get recommendations on these properties to either have someone here to outline what their thoughts were, or if they can't be here to give us some kind of a synopsis or something like that.
I think
Might be
that's-
helpful going forward.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you for that. Okay, so it's a motion and a second on the floor to not exercise our right of first refusal. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
3-2, the motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public hearing. And is there someone here for to represent? So,
Cornerstones.
oh, you same person?
Yeah.
Okay. That's handy.
So I haven't been here in 15 years, and I have 2 meetings in one night. So
That's great, thank you. I'm going to read the legal notice of hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Carver Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 6th at 7:05 p.m. at the Carver Town Hall, 108 Main Street, 2nd floor, in Carver, on the application of Emma Will, LLC, doing business as Cornerstones, for a change of officers/directors/LLC managers, change of ownership interest, LLC members/LLP partners, trustees, and change of manager located at 96 North Main Street. You just-
Madam Chair, Board, Craig Medeiros again, attorney for Emma Will LLC, doing business as Cornerstones in Carver. Just to give you a quick background, I was actually here 15 years ago for this original permitting for Cornerstones. When it was originally permitted, there are 3 parties involved essentially. There's Bill King, who's at the restaurant a lot, and his 2 daughters, which are Lisa King, sorry, drawing a blank. Tracy King, sorry. So Lisa and Tracy were actually originally owners on the original permit, and then Tracy was the original manager. Tracy is no longer going to be involved with the business going forward. Bill King's 73 years old, so he's transitioning everything over to Lisa King, who's the proposed manager at the site at this point in time, as well as the proposed sole owner under the liquor license. Lisa has been involved regularly since December, getting acclimated to the business. I don't believe it's actually on the application, but she does have experience in the restaurant and bar industry. She was involved with the Village Steakhouse located in Weymouth. It's actually now known as Stockholders on Route 18. It was approximately 20 years ago that the same 3 parties actually operated that business. And then approximately 15 years ago, they moved to Carver and have operated Cornerstones. If the board does have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion and a second for discussion?
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions? Anyone?
Everything's been followed through the ABC. It looked like I had check marks.
Yeah,
That's all set.
So you have the whole application packet. Once it's approved here, it's sent to the ABCC. If there's any issues, they'll contact me for any additional information, and everything should be in good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor to approve the license, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Public hearing, right?
Oh, that's right, thank you. Whoops, public hearing. Thank you, Jim. Well, we haven't closed the hearing yet, so is there anyone here who would like to make a public comment on this? Seeing no movement to the microphone, thank you. Apologize for the out of order. Okay.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion to close is unanimous. Thank you all. Thank
Thank
you.
you again, Madam Chair and Board.
Sure thing.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion and possible vote contesting the appointment of all constables appointed by the interim. I believe this was an item you wanted to have on the agenda, Mr. Belvin.
Yes. All right, so I had asked for some information regarding the constables, and one of the emails that came back, and I don't know if, it looks like everyone did get that, that in this it says, Chief Dufley informed me that the police department has no usage, has not used constables in several years, and there is no foreseeable need for them. However, the need could potentially arise, and therefore there are no receipts. I asked about money. Now, constables, as I used to be one, every service they do, they have to submit some money to the town. And if these guys have been constables for a number of years, even prior to being the only appointed constables in the town of 3 constables. I think we had up to 8 before, or 9. Some 3 were appointed, the rest were, 3 were elected, the rest were all appointed. And I think there's an issue with knowing what a constable does. And that's an issue. So first thing is, there's some misinformation out there about what constables do. Constables don't work for the police department. They're independent contractors. All right? They go out and they work for residents, lawyers, if bail's bondsmen's, they have the power to arrest, okay? They're the civil end of the court systems. You have the criminal end and you have the civil end. Typically, the police don't get involved in civil issues. That's what constables do. We have a sheriff's department in our town, in the county here, and they perform a civil function, working for lawyers, serving notices. They do that. But constables work for the residents within our town. And I'm all for constables being here in our town. Because if they're in our town, you know they're working for our town. But if we have people that are constables, and they've been doing this for a number of years, and I asked for the last 5 years of records, and we have no record within 5 years that they gave back 1 penny to this town. Not 1 penny. They've been doing it for 5 years. I asked for 5 years of records. We have nothing. I was there for 3 years as a constable being elected, okay? And during that 3 years, I performed 2 services, okay? And I submitted money back to this town. So in my 3 years with my 2 services and being new, that's tough to turn around and get new business. It's like starting a new business. You want to get customers, but you got to prove to them that you're able to do this job and do it right and legal. And the 2 services that I did provide, it passed the courtroom muster, meaning the judge received those divorce papers and he looked at those and says, they were served appropriately. Oh, yep. Looking at it, all the paperwork signed, dated, it's attested that they were done right. Got thumbs up on both of those, okay? Now, one of the other things with constables, this was another misconception is, well, they have to be part of a constable association first. You can't become a constable, all right? You can't get into a constable association until you're a constable. I got the Mass Constable Association and Mass Bay Constable Association. It says you have to be elected or appointed as a constable before you can become a member. So you have to understand this, is that it's not like, oh, well, join this association first. You can't do that. Their bylaws restrict. You have to have a paper that says, I have been appointed or I have been elected by this town. Now, when I went to my meeting for the Mass Constable Association, took me a while to get in there, but I finally did. All right, I sat there and I told them, hey, this is what's going on. As soon as I became a constable, not even 6 months into the position, and the former leadership of the town decided, well, hey, let's not have elected constables. Mr. Belbin's a constable. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. We don't want him to be a constable, so let's go and get them appointed instead. So there is no election. And know it, when we do that, then we're not going to turn around and appoint Mr. Belbin as a constable, which that's what happened. Okay? All good and well. But I went to this meeting and I said to them, I said, listen, just to be honest with you guys and let you know what's going on, the town is looking to go to town meeting and get rid of elected and just go to appointed. And they all said that's a bad idea. They did. Me and another constable went to the governance committee, where the governance committee was, oh, no, we can't have it. We can't have it. No, it's got to be appointed. No. Well, 2 elected members showed up, me and Mr. Brack. We sat at that meeting. We told them, this is what we do. Okay? These are what we do. These are the services we offer. Okay? We think it should be elected. No. Went to town meeting. Town meeting said, no, don't need it. Okay. It goes to appointed. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Belvin, but we're discussing the appointment of contesting the appointment of these constables.
That's right, but you have to have a foundation to understand why I'm contesting these.
You're contesting them because you were removed from being
No,
elected?
I'm contesting them because they haven't brought any money to this town. Okay? This is the point. You need to know why a constable does. Okay? And I think that's part of the problem is there are people that don't know what a constable does, and the rules are here. There's laws for it. Now they're appointed. Okay? We allow the town administrator. But this email here that says the police chief doesn't see a need for it, and it's nothing against the police chief. Okay? He was given this job. He didn't want it, I don't think, but no matter what. Okay? He doesn't use constables. All right? If these guys haven't done any work for our town, are they here? Are there any constables in this room right now? Not one decided to show up at this meeting, and they all knew that it was being contested.
How would they know that?
Huh? We have an agenda, don't we?
Well, I don't think that people look at the agenda just in case that the board may veto an appointment. I don't know that.
Well, didn't you notify them to say it was being contested?
Well, not that it was being contested, but they are aware of the board's ability to veto an appointment.
So could we?
So they should have known, but
Well,
Can we
people
now
don't
hear
come in
from
here
Mr.
people don't
Lafon,
come in
please?
here for an interview. That's not what they do. I mean, if the board
Well,
wishes to veto an appointment based upon whatever criteria, that's your prerogative. But people who've been appointed by the town administrator don't come in here to sing for their supper. The board wishes to contest or veto an appointment, that's your prerogative. But we don't usually have people in here as a separate, almost a backup interview. I think that'd be unprecedented,
And
in my experience.
And my understanding, Mr. Lafond, is that at the time of the appointment of the original 2 constables, the constable who do not live in Carver, by the way, the constable who does live in Carver had not completed his application according to state law.
Yeah, we have 3 constables. 2 of those appointments came up recently, as you know. The 2 that were on the agenda for appointment, I think they were put on the agenda in error. I don't think it was recalled that these had been changed to an appointment at some point in the years past. The 2 gentlemen have both served for over 20 years as constables. They're in good standing with the police department, the courts, etc. What somebody would be effectively doing is recommending removal without cause. That's really what would be recommended. The second thing I would say is we do have now an application that's complete from another gentleman. And we have a 3rd spot that is available. So when that appointment comes up, and I think it's in the next couple of months, we do have person in town who's eligible for that appointment. And I agree with Mr. Belbin, despite what the bylaw says, and I think this is true of just about any professional organization, you can't belong until you're appointed. So in fairness to Mr. Brack, it would not be, despite the language in the bylaw, I don't think that's realistic. I think there has to be some point where you would appoint somebody and give them a period of time to belong to these organizations, because yeah, it's a closed field, so to speak. So Mr. Brack, and I know this isn't about Mr. Brack, I realize that's not the point here, but we do have a qualified applicant now. We have 3 spots available. I would ask that the 2 appointments that have been made, be allowed to stand based upon their own history and experience in this town, and the fact that while I appreciate, the desire to have, a resident in these positions, there isn't any legal requirement to do that. So based upon the guidelines that I'm working within, there's no requirement for that. Now, that being said, there was a prior meeting of the board, and there was some general thought that it would be, if we had our druthers, that we'd like to have town residents. Well, that's fair. At the time, we didn't. At the time of this appointment, we didn't. We do now. So we can only go forward, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. LaFawn. Is there a motion and a second here on this item?
I make a motion we not appoint these.
I think veto would be what's
Or veto.
is the correct terminology.
I mean, before I do this, one more thing, because
Let's get a second first.
Okay,
Is
fine.
there a second? Okay. So there's been a motion and no second, so the motion fails. But thank you, Mr. Belbin.
Can I just ask a question on that? Is it about the third vacancy? You said it's coming up in a couple months.
I believe it's in the summertime, but I'm not sure exactly the date.
Is someone currently in that position?
Yes, somebody's currently.
So they could potentially apply for reappointment also. So it's not like Mr. Brack is a shoo-in?
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Just
So-
want to be clear.
I mean, I'm sorry. I don't.
Sure. Thanks.
So, I mean, to go along with that is that, I mean, you said without just cause, okay? Well, these positions, all right, for appointment, okay, they're for term. They're a 3-year term, okay? And the 3-year terms there is, once that term is done and over with, it ends.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so you're not removing them from just cause. That has nothing to do with just cause. Okay, it's that we no longer are going to appoint you. There's no reason to say why you are or you're not. It's not like they're going to come and sue us for it,
Okay.
for not being appointed.
Thank you, Mr. Belbin. I think we need to move on, if you don't.
And I do agree with Bob from a technical, but I think from a realistic, human level, when you don't appoint somebody who's been in a position for a couple decades, that's effectively removal.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. LaFawn. If the board will permit it, I'd like to move these next 2 items around so that we discuss whether to reopen the warrant to include the town administrator bylaw article and the petition article received 10 days after the warrant had closed. And then after that, discuss the annual town meeting warrant article recommendations. Is that everyone okay with that? Okay, thank you. So the discussion, possible vote on whether to reopen the warrant. I just want to point out a few things first. It might help us move this along a little bit, if I may. So as to the petition article, we closed the warrant. This board voted to close the warrant, and it was posted on our agenda. I think it was the February 2nd agenda, but anyway, it was on our agenda as an item to vote on whether to close the warrant on February 5th. This board voted to do that. The warrant closed on February 5th. We then received a petition article 10 days later after the warrant has closed. My feeling about this is that we have these rules for a reason. I was in the office with Mrs. Weston and Mr. LaFawn when they had a calendar in front of them and they were backing up the days. Okay, if town meeting's here, we have to do this first, and then we have to do that, and then this thing has to happen. So we have to close the warrant on February 5th. Oh boy, that's kind of quick. But it was out there, it was in the public domain. And so that's what happened. And I also think that we have to follow those rules too. I think what happened here in terms of the TA bylaw is that we all actually thought there was a placeholder on the warrant, myself included. But in retrospect, I realized that really the person who wants a particular bylaw or a particular warrant article on really has to make sure that he or she makes that placeholder request. That's what I did with the transferring the conservation parcels from select board to conservation. I knew my articles were probably not going to be, perfect first round. I got them into Elaine before the 5th to make sure that they were there. I knew they were going to undergo changes. And then moving along, the actual ATM warrant, it's been closed, and we have to post it 7 days prior to law. Those of you who did not get a chance to sign it, you can still sign the one that the town meeting will see. So it's not like you were, excluded for any reason. The only alternative we have now, we really can't reopen the warrant. What we could do, and I don't suggest this, is that we could cancel town meeting, reschedule it, and I think that would be really kind of disrespectful to particularly the town clerk's office and all her staff and the workers she has to hire. I'm sure she's got that all in place. But the most important point I want to make here, and then I'll let you guys have your say, is that there's really no fire here. I think that was the term Mr. LaFond used when we were discussing it. I mean, this is it's an act of special legislation. It has to go to the legislature. It's not like a zoning article that we vote on in the spring and then the AG tells us whether they approve or not in November. These things can take from a year to 2 years. I've seen both. And so what that means is whoever our search committee, even if it's not us, if it's a different board, whoever that search committee recommends and then the new board coming up appoints as the TA will not even, this won't apply to that person. It'll apply to the person after them. So to me, I didn't, when we found out there was no placeholder, my feeling was, well, let's just do it in a special in the fall. So that's my 2 cents. If anyone else would like to make a comment.
Yeah, I would.
Mr. Belvin.
Okay, so to make this clear, because my emails are clear on this, I tracked them back to February, emails to Sarah about putting this on for annual town meeting. Now, what you're saying here, I just want to make it clear, Sarah, is that one select board member can put on a placeholder without the other board of selectmen's doing it. Is that accurate?
You can ask.
Who are we asking?
You can ask Mr. LaFond and Mrs. Weston. You can say, I'm going to bring this to the board at such and such a meeting. I'd like for this to be a placeholder. They can put it in there. It's still a draft until it isn't.
But I just, like I said.
And that's what I did. I think it's something that maybe board members don't know, but I want to tell you too that I can't be expected to know what everyone doesn't know. So I'm perfectly willing to answer questions when people ask, but I can't, read people's minds either.
My emails are clear, Sarah, of what the intent of that town administrator bylaw. We worked on this for months and months and months.
That's correct.
For this, okay.
And it was your bylaw that you brought up, Bob. So this is this is not a you blame game thing here. It didn't happen. It didn't become a
that's why I want to make it clear to everyone. All right. So it only takes one select board member to put a placeholder on any other future articles to come before town meeting. All right, in the draft.
And then the whole board has to vote on whether or not we recommend it be on the warrant.
Okay, because like I said, that didn't happen the last year either, where it got put on and none of the board members thought. My feeling is that in order for you to put a placeholder on, you really should discuss that topic with all your board members in an open public setting before you actually put it on. I just think having just say, I'm going to put this on, I mean, so next year, I mean, before town meeting, I'm going to put 20 placeholders on for every article that you do. I mean, I think that's stupid, to be honest. But I think that the way you should do it is you bring the topic up to the Board of Selectmen here, you discuss it like we did with this article, okay? And then when you have somebody sending you messages saying, hey, it's got to get put on, okay, then as the chairperson, I think that's your responsibility to do it. But what you're saying now is it's not the chair's responsibility to put it on. It's our individual responsibilities to make sure placeholders. I just don't think that that's right to do. Just my opinion there. All right. And I just think it was, and then the other thing about the posting, I mean, I got a notification at 1:30, somewhere around there. Oh, you got to come in here and sign the warrant for town meeting. And I think that's crazy to turn around and do that because I go to work at 2 o'clock.
So Bob, we just needed 3 signatures. This was to post. This is not the final warrant. We all get a chance to sign the final warrant.
Well, I'm not going to sign it after the fact.
No. You don't, I'm not, maybe I'm not explaining this very well.
No, you are explaining it fine, Sarah. What I'm saying
there's a posting of the warrant, and then there's the final warrant that goes to press that the members of the public see when they come to town meeting. That can have, that hopefully will have 5 signatures on it because we have a little time now. But they're under a constraint here. And Mr. LaFawn, I wish you would tell us why it was so last minute, because there's a really good reason.
Well, I did send an email to the board earlier today, and it is typical that you wait as long as you can to finalize, to sign your warrant, and because once you sign it, it's a final warrant. And you don't want to be posting something that hasn't been vetted as much as possible. And the examples I mentioned is that as recently as this week, there was some recommendations made by council regarding some zoning articles that ultimately withdrawn, as well as some pieces of the wetlands protection articles. So it is a fluid process right up to the gun to make sure you have it as in good a shape as you possibly can. So it is fairly typical for the board to be signing a town meeting warrant, what you'd call the last minute. But it's not in an emergency type setting. It's just the way it generally works. And again, these things are all ultimately up to the board. If you want things done, finalized, even before you've got final council recommendations. But I don't know that this is, you have to decide if you have a problem that needs to be solved here. I
Right.
personally, I don't see that you do, but I can't tell you what you think is.
Yeah. Personally, I'd prefer to wait for council to have looked at the warrant before it gets posted. That's, I'm, not being a lawyer.
Well, I mean,
Mr. Townsend?
Madam Chair, just a couple of thoughts. First of all, as far as the town administrator article, I think it's unfortunate that it's not on the warrant, but I think it's inappropriate for us to postpone town meeting for this. So I think we'll just have to deal with it and get it on, whether we have a special town meeting in the fall or however we have to do that. And as far as the signatures on the warrant, I understand the need to wait as long as possible because there could be changes, but maybe in the future, instead of sending out the email the afternoon of the last day, maybe we just make the board members aware maybe a week in advance. Hey, next Wednesday, could you find some time in your schedule to come in and whenever and sign it? That's the day. Maybe we can do something like that. But I think it was a little last minute. So those are just my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Mr. Hoffman?
Just to piggyback on what Mr. Townsend said, I was the one that raised the question about this, where I saw Bob, has to work and received the message late. Jen wasn't available. I happened to be in town hall that day, so I could sign it. But until it was actually explained to me that this signing was just to get the warrant posted and not the official one that'll be printed and handed out at the town meeting, that made me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Not 100% better, but a little bit better that And it hasn't happened in the past, I've been told too. I can understand, Mr. LaFawn, like you had said, that you want to do it as last minute as possible so town council can look at everything. So again, it's more, I think it was not explained well, especially for a newbie like myself, and I'm sure Jen had the same feelings. I didn't know the difference between the posted warrant and the warrant that will actually be printed.
Right.
But again, like Mr. Townsend had said, that would be a great idea if, just to give us a heads up, hey, next Wednesday's the deadline, we need to have signatures by then, so you can make plans. Because a lot of us I don't check email 3 times a day. I just happen to be in town hall at the time, so Shelby grabbed me and I get to sign it. And as far as the town administrator article, I agree that it's disappointed that it's not gonna be on here, but where it couldn't take effect at least till another year, so it won't affect this upcoming decision we all have. I personally don't see a problem with putting on the next town meeting if it's gonna hopefully be in the fall. But again, it's just more communication. We have to communicate better amongst ourselves. And I did have one quick question. As far as a placeholder, as a citizen can put a placeholder in as well, is that correct?
Well, citizens do petition articles,
Okay.
and they have to submit them before the warrant closes too.
Right.
So, but I think they have to get 10 signatures
For an annual town meeting.
for annual town meetings.
So,
They have to get quite a few more for a special.
correct.
But I just, from Bob, when Bob and yourself were talking, it was a select person had to submit the placeholder. I just want to clarify that not just a select person can do that. A citizen can as well, with the proper rules being followed.
As far as I know, that's right. As long as it's, a citizen's petition article, they can't just have a regular warrant article on there.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Townsend.
Thanks.
Mrs. Bogart.
All right, to give some specifics to Mark's point, we got the email at 1:19 and said we needed it signed by 3. So not only was it short notice, it was really short notice. Like everyone else, I'm disappointed that it's not on there too. And I guess personally, if we spend that much time discussing something in multiple meetings, on my end, there's a reasonable expectation that it would automatically be on the warrant, because clearly it's something important to the board that we've been working on. Not that one of us would have to reach out and say, hey, that thing we've been working on, we really want it on the warrant. And to the articles that you put a placeholder on, we never discussed those. So
We discussed them in the meeting. Yeah.
But since we spent so much time, again, reasonable expectation, I have the same concern about a different article that's in here and a version we were working on that's not in here, but that's not for this topic. But I think it's wrong that the article's not on there, and I do question why it wasn't added, because it was clearly important to all of us and we had a good consensus. We had a good thing going.
Yeah.
So I would like to formally right now request a placeholder for the special town meeting that the bylaw we worked on be put on that warrant.
There you
And
go.
that is on record. You can print that.
Thank you, Mrs. Bogart. Yes, and again, I think we were all disappointed. I certainly expected there was a placeholder as well. So,
One last, please.
Mr. Belvin, yes. If
So
we move on.
I just want to make it clear that the warrant that was signed by the 3 selectmen, all right, here, we can't change anything that's written in here until town meeting, correct? We can't add stuff to it. We can't change anything.
You can't change the warrant.
You can't change everything that's in this document right here.
Well,
We can't change anything until town meeting. Because, I mean, you gotta give 7 days before town meeting, you have to give notice of
correct.
the warrant.
Right.
So this is the warrant, we can't change anything.
You can't change the warrant, no.
You can make
Right.
you can make amendments on town meeting floor
That's what I'm
if they're
saying
within,
here.
within the
Yes.
scope of the article, but you can't actually change the wording on the
Right,
warrant
so
now.
that's why I would not sign a document after the fact. That I can't do that. It's just, I think that's not right, okay? Because number one is, I didn't get a chance to read this new one, all right, and I don't know you guys signed it, hopefully you read everything through here, because that's you saying that, okay, everything in here for it. I mean,
Well,
I just got this one, like I said, through our stuff, and I started to read it and haven't went through it all, but
so what we signed was the version that town council signed off on. Is that correct, Mr.?
That is correct.
Yes,
And
so
that's
that,
this-
I'm pretty comfortable with that.
is that this one?
Bob, I can't tell you, I have
Yes, it's the one we
two
signed.
versions here going back, so I'm not sure what you're holding up right there.
Well, this is what we were received on
Okay.
our thing, so this
So is
the
there a
one.
motion here to, as to whether to reopen the warrant?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to discussion and possible vote of the annual town meeting warrant article recommendations.
Can I
Now,
just point out, Sarah?
yes, Mr. LaFawn.
That the thoughts and the instruction of this board is well taken,
Mm-hmm,
so I don't want that to be missed.
certainly, yeah. Appreciate that. So, so the last time we voted here was to recommend that articles be put on the warrant. And tonight, we are voting as to whether we approve or recommend them as our board's recommendation. As to their content, I guess is the distinction. Article 1 is the annual town report. Is there a motion?
Motion to recommend?
Is there a second?
Second that.
We
Motion.
already did that one.
Yes,
I thought we did.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
It's kind of confusing, because I
Yeah.
thought we recommended them. I mean, we
We
put them
also-
on the thing, but we also made recommendation for them,
We did on some of them. Now,
on some of them,
So
and
it's
other
ju-
ones we
excuse
haven't.
me, Mr. Belvin. So we start with Article 3 then? I thought we already voted on that as well.
Says 0-0.
Mr. Mr.
I-
LaFond?
One moment, I just want to clarify with Elaine that is this handout relevance to this tonight? For my benefit, okay. Can you just identify for us, Elaine, which
No,
articles?
we've already done that one. Oh. Article 6? What was our vote for Article 3? Because it says 0-0 here. That's all right. Article 3? Okay, yep. I just wanted to know where to start. Thank you. So Article 3 is allocation of funds from fiscal 2021 free cash. And it has a list of funds. Town/school special education reserve, FY22. North Carver Water District for well and infrastructure debt, FY22. Plymouth County retirement amortization, FY22. North Carver landfill, FY22. Final funding for health insurance mitigation fund, FY22. Emergency radio communications maintenance, FY22. Operations and maintenance, field maintenance and supplies, FY22. General stabilization replenishment, FY21. Compensated absences replenishment, FY21. Other post-employment benefits, FY22. Executive consultant contract, FY22. Capital maintenance repair replacement reserve, FY21. And recreation committee expenses, programs, and activities for FY22. Is there a motion?
Motion to recommend.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
second that.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
If I could just point out, Sarah,
Mr. LaFawn.
although the board had held off on this because they wanted the finance committee to look at it, and the finance committee has reviewed it, and they are recommending in favor of it as printed.
Good, that's great. Any further discussion?
Did any of these numbers change from the
Mr.
last time
Belvin?
when we had it?
No,
Thank you.
no.
So motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of recommending Article 3?
Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. And then we have,
We did fine.
I believe you said Article 6. Has the Finance Committee voted on Article 6?
Madam Chair.
Certainly, Mr. Chair.
We did, and Article 6,
Wait a minute, you have to introduce yourself and use the microphone.
nobody knows me. Alan Germain, Chairman of the Finance Committee, Adam Holmes, Vice Chair.
Can you say that into the microphone, Alan?
Alan Germain, Chairman of the Finance Committee, and go ahead, you have time.
Adam Holmes, Vice Chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
Can I have a copy of the warrant, Rick? Please?
Sir.
One that doesn't say draft all
Madam
over it?
Chair, there's someone who doesn't have a mask on over there, and they're supposed to.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Ferrand?
I have a medical problem and I have a note from my doctor. Would you like to see it?
Oh, no, that's all right.
Is
Thank you
that-
very much. Appreciate it.
I believe you. At the joint meeting with the Select Board and the Finance Committee, the Finance Committee was tasked with looking at the capital improvement budget. Specifically, the technology. So we had a meeting with the Steve Mahoney and Ron Griffin, so we could try to figure out why there was so much money in the technology budget. And they explained everything to us. It made sense. I'm going to run through some preliminary notes very quickly, just so you can get an idea of where they were at with this. Had a lot to do with the internet. There's a couple things that were brought up, some upgrades. It made sense. Just bear with me for 1 second. Do you have the notes on that? Yeah, techno, thank you. The technology looks at town replacement costs for some of the internet stuff, school replacement cost. Another thing that was kind of shocking to me was $85,000 for town-wide copiers, but I guess the bulk of those are in the school department. They're on lease. So that was there. Student devices was new Chromebooks, $100,000 for that this year. So that brought it to the FY22 numbers to where they are. FY23, the big thing was FY24, and I know we're a little premature on that, but we came to the conclusion that we think that to put the technology number on one line is ridiculous, because there's too many things that are built into that. So this year they're going to leave it the way it's posted. And for coming years, next year, especially the year after, they're going to break it out into separate line items within it, so that it's more defined. The $400,000 for the Carver Elementary School for internet and electronic upgrades, I think Adam and I both looked at him and said, this is a brand new school. So there was a chuckle, and they said yes. They had no intention of having that number stick. They were going to take that number and stretch it out a little bit each year to take that big hit away. So that was one of the positives that came out of that. The bottom line is that we were okay with technology this year and the way it was presented. So FinCom dealt with that. We were fine with it. That was the question the Select Board had. The big thing in the capital plan, we needed to find a way, and this is going to encompass the second article, it's going to also kind of roll into the water line. Adam, myself, Rick, and Meg sat down and said, we don't want to borrow any money. So how can we do what we can do that needs to get done? And the water line was, of course, the first thing out of our mouths, and we wanted to see this completed from start to end, everybody hooked up, and it's done. The taps are on, and everybody walks away, and Thank you. We want to write that check. So that was a good idea, and then Town Hall was the recommendation to do just the siding. And I said to Dave, but as soon as you start pulling off this siding, you know we're gonna find bad trim, you know we're gonna find something else. So why don't we do the whole building?
Right.
Trim, siding, paint, finished. And that was a good idea also. We wanna write that check. Now, how do we accomplish this? We were coming up a little bit short. So we spoke with, and I think I talked with you earlier about this. We really have to take our hats off to the department heads that run this town. We went over and we saw Chief Weston, and I understand his desire for the jaws of life, and all I simply asked him was, can you do us a favor? We have a different way of doing it this year. If you trust us, we'd like to put off the jaws of life till a possible fall town meeting. He said, I have no problem doing that at all if it helps you guys out. I've applied for a grant anyway, and that may come through. If it doesn't, fall town meeting is fine with me. So that was $115,000. We then went back to the school and said, can you guys give us back $75,000 someplace, whether it was one bus or whatever. They came back and they gave us back not doing work in the cafeteria. That was a $75,000 cut. We took $100,000 out of the $150,000 that was set up to do some of the AC work in the library, which would never have done it anyway. And we've reduced that to $50,000 for the purpose of doing engineering studies, so we know exactly.
Right.
We're not pulling numbers out of thin air to get that library straightened out. So that will, again, be, the library item will be something that will be on fall town warrant. But the $50,000 is what's in this proposal here. So as this budget sits now, FinCom voted 7-0 to go forward with this. It pays cash for the water line completion. It pays cash for the town hall siding and trim complete. It puts $50,000 into a study for the library. And then we've given finance committees assurances to the extent that we're able to. And I explained to both Rick and Scott Neef and Ron that we don't have the authority to order a fall town meeting, but if there is a fall town meeting, that we will commit to making sure these items are on the warrant for that meeting. But the ultimate scheduling of the meeting rests with the 5 of you. So that was good enough for them. It's actually good enough for me. I trust that everybody's working together here, and that's where we're at. So that was a unanimous 7-0 vote. It took, I don't know, what was it, a couple of meetings? It was a meeting with Rick and Meg, and then there was a second follow-up, I think, and then there were the meeting you had with Scott. I went over and saw Craig. Then we all met together as a FinCom again, and then, well, that was after the joint meeting.
Right.
So there was a lot that went into this to make this happen, but we really think that we didn't want to incur the debt. Originally there was thoughts about, well, maybe we could float a bond, take a bond and do all of these big projects, get them done. But the interest rate that we thought was going to be terrific, and they did look into it, it was terrible.
I think part of it was actually too small. Too
Yeah.
small a loan. Yeah, if you're going to borrow $40 million, you're going to get a great rate.
Sure.
But for a relatively small borrowing by indebtedness standards, wasn't what we had hoped.
Yeah, and it just didn't make sense. So we really thought this was the best overall picture of everything. Everybody is happy. We've just been in conversation with Mary Ann McLeod,
Library
I think
trustee
you all got a
chair.
copy of that email.
Right.
Now with Rick's response, she and Carol and Julius are very comfortable with the knowing that we are on this,
Yeah.
that we didn't just kick it under the rug and say, don't worry about it. So everybody's pulling in the right direction with this. So,
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Townsend.
I just want to take a minute to Alan, to thank you and your committee for all the extra work you put into going through this. I know there was a lot of discussion at our joint meeting about this, and I appreciate you taking this on and taking the time to go through this, and and bringing it all home. I really, just please pass that on to all your whole committee.
We have a good committee.
Yeah, I echo that, definitely.
We actually have a pretty good vice chair. He does, he's the one who called me at 10 minutes to 7 tonight. It's Jean's birthday tonight.
Oh,
So Adam called me, he says, I thought I'd see you here when I got here. And I says, why would I come there tonight? Well, aren't we doing this? Okay. So
Tell
I think
Jean we're
putting
we're
a scoop of
sorry.
ice cream in a dish as I left. So
Please apologize to Jean on our behalf.
Say happy birthday to her in case
We could.
she got dinner tonight. She wanted pizza at Mark Anthony's.
One quick second, Mr. Belbin. Mr. Levon, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh,
before?
I echo Mark's sentiment.
Mhm.
The committee, as you know, we've got a deficiency right now in our capital outlay group, which are going to hopefully will be corrected over the next few months. And,
Mhm.
and to their credit, they took on review of these items that ordinarily would be capital outlay. And,
Right.
and they again very thorough, as Mr. Chairman Germain said. We had quite a few, several meetings, a lot of heart to hearts on how best to handle this. We were disappointed by the fact that we couldn't do the project this year, the library project. We had to look at some smaller items too. But as Alan says, everybody was understandable about it, and of course, we all had the pleasure of having to break the news to these people too. But everybody, as Alan said, everybody here plays very well together. And we think this is the best plan, and I would echo Alan and Adam's thoughts, and as well as I speak from Meg also.
Right. Thank you.
So again, we thank you for your efforts, and they say we've got the team's pulling in the same direction as Alan says. So.
No, and I appreciate that very much. And I actually really want to see this done right. So I think it's the right thing to do myself.
We couldn't see piecemealing it. It just didn't make any sense to us.
Right. Mr. Belbin.
Yeah, I too. I mean, I don't like the bond money out. I think you guys know that. So I appreciate all the work the department heads did, and you guys, the time and effort you took into it, all of yous, for this. The only question I ask, who is the capital outlay chairperson now?
There isn't one.
We don't have one?
I believe it's Mr. Angley.
Okay. All right.
I think he's still on the, but they haven't had a meeting, I don't think, in over a year. In fact, with your permission, Madam Chair, if you want to take your group's vote on Article 6, while we're still sitting up here, if you'd permit us to jump over to Articles 12 and 13, which is the FinCom and the capital outlay bylaws. We're here, we can give you some quick explanation on that.
Okay. All right. Would someone like to make a motion on this article?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Any further discussion? It's been a motion made and seconded to recommend the article. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, the article passes 4-1. Thank you all. If it's all right with the board, I'd like to skip to Article 11 and 12 while we have the finance chair and vice chair here.
Okay, I have it 12 and 13, so it is 11 and 12.
No, capital outlay is 12 in our handout.
Finance committee bylaw is Article 11,
Okay,
and
I have it as
capital outlay is Article 12.
Oh, we had which article was?
I'm sorry, are we citing the wrong numbers?
Which article are you looking at?
FinCom bylaw change. It's in this draft as Article 12.
It is 11.
Yeah, it's
It is 11, yeah. So do we have any updated copies for,
Is there some wording change?
No,
Was anything changed? Other than the article number?
I was going to say, where'd she go? No, nothing's changed other than any changes recommended by council were couple weeks ago. So what you're seeing would be the updated amount piece, yeah.
Well, then you can have this back. She's printing me a copy.
Fresh one, yes.
It's coming. Mr. Holmes, another copy's on its way. Mr. Levine, you said the FinCom article is Article 11?
It's Article 11.
Yes.
Okay, I have it covered.
Yeah.
Adam, this didn't get stapled or something.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
She has a long memory.
So I apologize for the holdup. Elaine has asked us to go ahead without her. She'll be right there. So, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so what started all of this was actually a little over a year ago when there was some discussion about the role of capital outlay, the role of FinCom, and the reason why it was the way it was, and the reason why the way it used to be may not work so well for right now. And so it got us all thinking. So this year, when the issue came up, and everybody knows the issue that came up, was the original bylaw that made everybody that's on every board and committee in existence, created within law, bylaw, state law, federal law, an officer of the town. And the bylaw specifically said that if you were on the FinCom, except for if you were an officer of the town. So it kind of like was, but you're an officer if you're on, but you can't be on if you're an officer. So it was kind of weird. So it got us started. Obviously, I sit on conservation. Marie Zwigman is a library trustee. There are a few other members that are on other committees. And we started thinking about the financial responsibilities and so forth. And FinCom is an advisory committee. We really can't do anything. I cannot have a session where we instruct the town administrator to instruct the finance department to cut a check for anything, other than a written funds transfer request for up to $125,000 that's given us that power at every town meeting. So they, in essence, allow us to oversee the $125,000 in case a budget runs short. It requires a majority of the FinCom vote to do that. Typically, the department head is there, as well as the town administrator, as well as the finance director. So when we looked at it from that angle, we said, well, I started playing with how we could maybe change some of this. And part of that change would have been to include capital outlay within the finance committee's umbrella. Not eliminate capital outlay and put the whole thing on the finance committee, but to create a subcommittee where it would have its own chairman. The chairman of the FinCom could not be the chairman of the capital outlay. It would have a selectman's representative of your choosing. It would have a school committee rep, like the current bylaw says. It would have a member of the finance committee sit on that subcommittee. And then it'd be 2 more residents appointed by the town administrator. They would come, as it is right now, when we had the joint meeting for the firemen's PPE, that was a joint meeting with capital outlay and finance committee. So capital outlay, we did that specifically so the fire department wouldn't have to do this twice. So they made one presentation. I think Ron Clark presided over that as chair, which was questionable because he's a selectman's representative. He wasn't really the chairman. But Mr. Angley was not present. I think Mr. Merritt was here, and I don't know the other gentleman. But they only had 2 members of capital outlay, and Ron made the 3rd. And then the finance committee. But in any case, it all passed. So we thought about how to make it maybe a little more streamlined. We're already involved when the departments come to us, particularly public safety. We always get into the discussion about what's on their capital plan, and then we go into what their wish list is, which is usually capital expense items. So we're discussing it anyway. So we thought it would be a little bit easier come budget season if this were brought under the FinCom. They would have their own meeting. They could then come back to FinCom, or we could have a joint meeting with the capital outlay within FinCom and FinCom to do it all in one whack like we normally do. It just would be a little bit easier to pull it together. The Finance Committee's bylaw change, I took out the appointed town officers. I also took out Council on Aging. Why that ever got put in there is a mystery to all of us. No elected member of the Select Board is the only non-allowed individual other than a town employee or a person holding a position of financial responsibility. So I took out appointed town officers. And that's only because we had council determine that everyone that's on any committee, board, or commission that is established in law is in fact a town officer. Well, that has to be changed simply because if you took it by its literal interpretation, you couldn't sit on the finance committee.
Well,
so
I think it means cannot be any other town officer.
This is where we get into the, we thought it meant, and this is why Greg was here, and so this kind of clarifies things a little bit. So the only ones that are not eligible for appointment to the Finance Committee are the elected 5 members of the Select Board. The reason why we did that is because ultimately, in my view, you are the executives of the town. You're it. We don't get any higher. You control the way the town is operated. The other departments report to you. So, especially FinCom, we don't have any authority. The town meeting in some towns is put on by FinCom and they invite the Select Board. This town, the Select Board puts on town meeting and you invite the FinCom. So that's how that kind of works. No member of a special town committee shall be authorized to vote as a member of the Finance Committee on any matter pertaining to the duties of a special committee for which he is a member. So that solves that problem with the conflict of interest. We have Beth Selger's husband is a fireman. She consistently abstains from voting on anything to do with the fire department budget, even though she doesn't really have to, because we're not voting on a pay raise for the firefighters. Similar to what you'd vote, you'd abstain if that were to come before this board that directly involved income for Sean. You would not partake in that vote, and it would be proper that you did abstain.
He can't put words in my mouth. I just want that on the record.
You can't do that, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I'm not trying to, I would
Okay.
expect you would, so.
Let's move on.
I have a question.
So, the Select Board exclusion shall not apply to membership on capital outlay as described in bylaw 471. So this eliminates that problem, because we actually need a member of the Select Board to sit on capital outlay, and that's a desirable thing to have happen. Person holding a position of financial responsibility shall be defined as a resident hired to perform or consult on legal, accounting, or assessing duties for the town and to be paid for this service as a contractor. So that defines what the financial responsibility is. And it's pretty straightforward and basic the way it's written. FinCom was in favor of this, and I see that the Select Board had never taken it up, but that's just our 2 cents worth. So.
I'll make a motion, we approve, or recommend, we recommend.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Belvin?
Is special town committee, is that defined anywhere?
Which article are you talking about?
The
Article 11.
The Finance
Okay.
Committee bylaw.
Okay.
It says no member of a special town committee shall be authorized. So do we have what a special town committee is?
I'll be honest with you, that's not my sentence. I think that that's legal's sentence.
Yeah, I don't think there's a definition
That
of
didn't
that.
come out of my mouth.
No, that's fine. That's why we ask these questions. So I think that's going to be needed to be defined when we go to town meeting to say what that actually is, because that's an
I agree.
exclusion. So thank you. That's
I
my
agree.
only comment.
Mrs. Bogart?
All right, this was the article that I referenced in our last discussion when we were talking about the town administrator bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
And I have written down my thoughts, so I try not to lose them.
Thank you.
The article before us is basically the opposite of all of the discussions that we had about this warrant article, which, similar to the town administrator bylaw one, we talked about for many meetings and many times. And in my opinion, we were making good progress, and I thought we were at a consensus when we were asked by a member of the Finance Committee twice to have a joint meeting with the committee to discuss it. That meeting never happened. I don't know why. And then all of a sudden, there's an article on this exact same matter written by a Finance Committee member. And I don't think we did all of that work and had all of that discussion just to comment on someone else's version. I thought we were crafting and proposing our own bylaw. And then specifically, not to call you out, Rick, but the last time we spoke in your office, and sorry I'm reading this and not looking at you, I specifically remember telling you I wanted to address this bylaw with the board, and I had asked if I could propose changes in the wording that would more closely meet our discussions, so that could be the language that goes in the warrant. And you told me I could, or that it might be better for us to just leave this one alone and maybe not put the article on the warrant at all. And then Mr. Townsend walked into the office and we told him what we were talking about. And he agreed that the select board's intent up to that point was to have the finance committee bylaw mirror the capital outlay one, where you can be on finance committee and that's it. And you said that you were going to speak to the writer of the bylaw and, I quote, give him a heads up that the select board may not want the article on the warrant at all. So I left your office believing that we were going to discuss this article with the option to change it before going on the warrant. So the wording would be our wording to go to town meeting, or to decide to not put it on the warrant at all. And at a previous board meeting, when we were discussing and talking about recommendation votes on other warrant articles, I had asked if we could make changes to some zoning articles, and Madam Chair said no because they weren't ours. But then at that same meeting with you, I asked you, and that you said yes, in fact, we could have changed the wording. Because I don't know how many times that I've been told things like, it's your warrant, it's the board's warrant, you control what goes on and what doesn't, since being elected last year. I really can't. So I really don't know who or what to believe anymore, because I feel like so much of what we've done in recent months, especially with these two bylaws, is being dismissed or discarded by people outside of these meetings. And I know I'm new, I know I have a lot to learn, and Sarah can't read my mind, and I make mistakes. But I'm approaching everything with like honesty, integrity, and I think follow through, and I don't think we're getting that. So I'm hearing it's too late for us to change wording on this tonight. And I'm assuming, and I hate assuming, that it's probably too late for us to pull this article too, which I have a serious problem with, because you told me we could and you told me we would. Not that we put, but we could discuss it. And I'm totally certain in that.
I do recall us discussing the fact that I agree it is the board's warrant. So what goes on this warrant is what the board decides goes on this warrant. And to the best of my knowledge, the board has not decided otherwise. The board approved this warrant. Now, the board can decide whether and what your recommendation is on this. You may recommend that this be passed over, or the board, that the town take no action on this. You could propose your own motion that, what's the word? That essentially says what this board wants it to say. It doesn't, the town doesn't have to vote this or not vote that. The town can vote whatever you put in front of them as a motion. So the fact that it's on the warrant does not keep the board from taking or proposing action to the town. So.
But where's our version that we were working on?
So that's, no, and to your question, I think that's what we need to pull up, and at town meeting, if that's the version that you want to make a motion on at town meeting, then that's the motion. As I think Rick explained in an email to us, that the warrant is a question, and the motion that's made at town meeting is the answer. Does it? Help me out here, because it was your email.
Yeah, no, an article, like as you mentioned, an article on a warrant is a question, and the lawyers will tell you this. That's a question. The motion that is made is the proposed answer to the question. So it's not a matter of take it or leave it. What's on the warrant? That's not the way it works. Now, as far as the prior conversations by the board, I don't. And again, I don't disagree, Jen, with the conversation that we had, but this isn't for me to decide what the board wants on the warrant. But yes, the board, during the period of time leading up to this, the board can certainly make whatever changes it wants to anything that isn't a petition article. Now, whether or not the board wants to maintain the existing bylaw or propose a motion different than what's written, That's completely up to the board, and I'm certainly going to be willing to draft whatever the board's desire is.
And we can do that this evening.
You can decide what you'd like, and certainly we can have a motion to reflect that.
I mean, he said straight up in his office, I will talk to him and we can just pull this from the warrant.
Well, that's not for me to decide, though.
I know, hey, it's
That's
what
for
you
the-
said.
that's
Okay.
No, but he means that
That's
the
for-
board can
that's-
decide to pull it
Right,
from
I
the warrant.
understand that.
Yeah.
And then with Mark,
Yeah.
it seemed that it would come back to us and we would have a chance to pull it from the warrant. And now it seems that we're too late to even have that
Well,
discussion.
I think what Mr. LaFawn said is that right now you could make a motion to amend this language.
Right, but that's for town meeting to decide, and I was told, I was under the impression, I was told we could do that here, not have to go to town meeting and make motions and proposals and let town meeting vote on it, that we could do it here, because again, it's a case of something we were working on. And now the version in front of us is totally different, and all that work we did, where is it? I just keep getting different answers.
Mr. Hoffman and then Mr. Townsend.
I just have a question. So this is a finance committee article, correct? So is the finance committee the only group that can pull this article from the town meeting warrant? Because we didn't submit this article?
Well, the town can choose to pass over this and take no action on the article.
The town meeting.
The town meeting can do that, right? And whether or not the finance committee or the select board makes that recommendation, that's up to you. So you won't, it doesn't come off the warrant, but it's a matter of making a recommendation to the town as to what to do with it.
So if we want to decide to have a joint meeting and discuss this at the fall town meeting, that would be something that would be discussed at the town meeting, proposed at the town meeting.
That is correct, yes, if that's what you choose to do, right? But that doesn't mean it comes off the warrant. It's just
Correct.
something that you would recommend the town pass over at this time.
And you can recommend that this particular article be passed over at town meeting, so that when the town meeting voters hear that, they'll go, oh, okay. That maybe the select board had something else in mind.
So anything that's in the warrant can't get pulled. Once it's printed, it can't get pulled. So once everyone signed off on it, which we did today, these articles, nothing can get pulled from the final warrant.
No, you don't take them off the warrant.
Okay.
Correct, you just make a recommendation to town
Anything
meeting.
that gets pulled has to be before it was signed by us. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I just
Sure thing.
clarification.
That's okay. Mr. Townsend.
Yeah, I just, as far as the wording of this bylaw or the two bylaws together, I think they both changed a lot. I think I recall a joint meeting we had, I believe, I think it was on Zoom way back when during the summertime. And I think the conversation at that time was, let's try to have the finance committee article mimic the capital outlay bylaw article, which was a very clear 1 or 2 sentences. But it's evolved since then. We've had issues with the capital outlay committee, and this is sort of evolved to take that into part of it. I think our thoughts have changed over time, and I think we have to decide as a committee whether is that what we want, or do we want to go back to a more simpler article?
Right, because we did work for a while on our own version. Yes, Mr. Belvin.
So I kind of echo that. I mean, we started this as the Board of Selectmen looking at this and saying, all right, we should start changing. But actually, because you brought that up, why this wasn't brought up with the Select Board, because what we all decided, it looks like, that we wanted to focus on our wording. It's now turned around where it's no longer our wording that we wanted to put on this town meeting, it's the Finance Committee's wording. So basically, I think that we got overruled for the Finance Committee to some extent for it. Do I have an issue with some of them? I kind of like what we did before, what we did. I understand why you did it this way here, but I do, like I said, same with the Special Town Committee. We don't have that spelled out of what that is. And whether it's a legal thing that put it in, fine, but we need that defined. I think we should have had a joint meeting between the FinCom and us to go through it and look at our proposed bylaw and your proposed bylaw, and we come to some type of agreement and merge the two of some sort. But it is kind of concerning here of how this warrant got crafted, the way it got crafted. And I mean, you say it's our warrant as the Board of Selectmen here, but like I said, some of this stuff we didn't get until a few days ago. The changes from legal.
Right, but you've had this draft warrant for a while. Just saying, this isn't the first time you've seen it.
No, I know, but I'm just saying is some of it's not the same. There are some
changes. There are some technical changes that council is, yes,
right.
that is correct, Bob.
Right, that's what I'm saying here.
Yes.
So, that's just my comment.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Jermaine?
This has been a placeholder and in print since the moment this warrant was originally printed, when it was a draft. Don't let anybody see this. It's just a junk copy. The spelling isn't even right yet. So this board has seen this wording for the better part of almost 3 months. And I can look up the date of the emails that were sent in when I proposed this. You guys want to do whatever you want to do with it. That's fine with me. But don't pin it on us that we didn't have a joint meeting. We were more than available. We were never invited. And I had no knowledge of what you would promise Ms. Bogart. If you were going to have us pull this thing, that would have been the time to tell us.
I think that we should probably have more conversation about that in the context of that.
This wasn't done sneakily behind anybody's back. It wasn't meant to undermine what you were trying to do. I have no idea what you were trying to do because FinCom was never privy to any of that. But this has been in print for quite a while, up until council got a hold of a few changes. But the basic structure of this, because Mr. Townsend asked me 2 months ago, you're taking out the wording out of capital outlay. I said, because we don't have a capital outlay committee. And it was this board that voted unanimously, Bob wasn't there, at the joint meeting to request the FinCom to look at the capital outlay projects because we didn't have a capital outlay committee, and we stepped up.
That's great.
I leave it to this board. You do what you want. Stand up before town meeting and do what you want. I will stand up before town meeting and support this, just so everybody knows.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Townsend.
I agree with Mr. Germain in a lot of that. This has been out there. Some minor changes have taken place. We did have a joint meeting, because at that joint meeting, I suggested a change in the way the select board wording in the capital outlay bylaw was worded. So this has been out there for quite some time.
It has.
So and we did have a joint meeting on it.
That's correct. We did.
Ms. Chair.
Mrs. Bogart.
My comments are not directed at Article 12, the capital outlay, because we did not work on that one. It's solely on Article 11.
I understand.
And I would have to respond to Mr. Germain's point, because it was Mr. Holmes who came to our meetings to ask that we sit down and work to meet with them. So that at least one member of the Finance Committee was privy to what we were doing. And I spoke early on in this process about this article. And part of that discussion and my interest in this was because, and I think I used the term power boards, and that was early on. And I questioned using power boards, but to go with the permitting one, I was trying to not let the same people be on a bunch of committees. And when I thought about the best way to approach it, I thought, let's look at the power committees to get more people. And I considered, in my opinion, the Finance Committee is a power committee. Maybe they only make recommendations to us. Mr. Germain said they host other town meetings. They're important. They're the ones who meet with the department heads, who go to Chief Weston and say, show me your jaws of life. They're important. Maybe they're not taking these votes, but they're a power committee. So to change the bylaw so drastically from what it is to this version when we were talking about just simplifying it, because we said the intent was clear with town council. I know we've all heard that. I know Mr. LaFont has said that to me in our meetings. The intent was clear. We were just trying to really take out any ambiguity. So I would be hard pressed to understand why any of us would have flip-flopped so far on who should be on the finance committee. Because planning board, I came from the planning board, he came from the planning board. To be on the planning board and the finance committee is huge. That's a whole lot. Those are power committees. In my opinion, and in our past conversations, it seemed we all agreed with that. So I'm not speaking out against the capital outlay article. But in my opinion, Article 11 is really shady. And again, I thought we were working towards something together as a board. And I don't think our communication's good.
Mrs. Weston, could I just ask you to remind me, I believe there's a motion and a second on the floor? And what was the motion?
Motion to recommend.
Thank you. Okay, so there's been a motion and a second to recommend this article. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of recommending Article 11, the Finance Committee bylaw article change, please say aye. Or shall we wait till Jen comes back? Okay. Please say aye. Okay. All in favor of not recommending the Finance Committee bylaw change?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So the vote is 5-0 not to recommend.
So recommendation would be 0-5, right?
0-5. Yes, you're right. Thank you very much for that correction. Okay, moving along to Article 12, Capital Outlay Committee bylaw change. Mr. Holmes, would you like to speak to that, or? Because I think your committee did work on that. I don't know if they voted on it or not.
So, I believe the Finance Committee did take a vote on this at our last meeting. So I'm happy to walk everybody through it if you'd like.
Sure, that would be great if you don't mind.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So Article 12, the Capital Outlay Committee bylaw change is to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 4.7 of the town's general bylaws to basically state that there shall be a Capital Outlay Committee consisting of 5 members instead of the predicate 7. 1 member shall be selected from the Select Board as its representative. 1 member shall be selected from the School Committee as its representative. And 1 member shall be selected from the Finance Committee as its representative, but such person shall not be the chair of the Finance Committee, and it must be somebody from the membership of the current Finance Committee. 2 members shall be selected by the town administrator, who are registered voters from the town. Term of office to capital outlay would be 3 years. Provided, however, that the term of the Select Board, School Committee, and Finance Committee representative shall automatically terminate when they are no longer members of that board. So they wouldn't complete their term on the capital outlay if they were no longer a member of the respective committee, and those respective committees would have to appoint new representatives. Capital Outlay Committee shall designate a chair annually at a public meeting held after July 1st, start of the new fiscal year. And the Capital Outlay Committee shall provide a full report of all matters presented to it for recommendation at least once per calendar year, and whenever requested by the chair of the Finance Committee or when requested by either committee. In addition, the Capital Outlay Committee shall review all requests for capital expenditures of $10,000 or more. It doesn't apply to the reserve fund transfer requests that Mr. Germain referenced previously. All requests shall be submitted in the format approved by the Capital Outlay Committee prior to the insertion of the requested town meeting warrant, or if the request is made by citizens petition. Section 4.7.3, the committee will review all requests at a duly noticed public meeting in accordance with the open meeting law and will vote on a recommendation including as to the method of financing. which shall be provided to the Select Board and Finance Committee and printed in the town meeting warrant if the recommendation is made before the time of publication. And that is essentially the entire warrant.
I make a motion we recommend.
Thank you, Mr. Belbin. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. There's been a motion made and seconded to recommend Article 12, the Capital Outlay Committee bylaw changes. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Belbin.
Where it says one member shall be selected by a select board as a representative, I don't think it should be the chair, personally. I'd make that motion to add that at town meeting. And that's really it for this one. Just like I said, it's just that. That's what I'll make a motion on, to change. Was cool.
Mr. Holmes?
Can I comment during your discussion?
Sure.
Just because I do really have a question.
Sure.
I would question, is this article, if the Finance Committee bylaw does not get changed, would it be a violation of the bylaw to have a member of the Finance Committee serve on this committee?
I say no, because you'd be serving on this committee by virtue of your being a member of the Finance Committee, correct? Yes.
I just wanted that clarified, because
Yes.
I wasn't sure how that would be.
No, it's a good
dealt with.
question, though, yes.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Okay, there's been a motion made and second to approve Article 12, the Capital Outlay Bylaw Committee
Can I ask
change.
one
Yes.
question?
Yes, Mr. Hoffman.
Originally, when we talked about this, the Finance Committee bylaw change, it was brought up, we wanted it to mirror the capital outlay, the requirements, that type of thing. I don't see anything on here. Am I missing something that says you can't be on?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
where it says the Capital Outlay Committee shall provide a report, directly below that, stricken out, it says there shall be 5 members appointed by the town administrator.
Mhm.
The term of office shall be 3 years, unless otherwise provided. No member may also be a member of any other committee, board, or commission.
Thank you for pointing that out,
Yeah.
Mr. Holmes.
And you're essentially, by creating other appointing authorities for membership, it almost is an obsolete requirement, as, you know, when it's changed. As the language exists right now, it's pretty clear.
I know originally when we talked about the Finance Committee, we wanted to mirror that, and that was the line I was looking
That
for,
was-
and I didn't see it.
That was
It
discussed,
struck-
yes, yeah.
Struck out, strike,
Yeah.
struck.
To your point, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Holmes, that line that you read has been stricken.
Yes. And I hadn't seen that before either, which is why I had the
Right,
question.
it's, yeah.
But my thought was that you wanted to keep that in there.
Well, that's again, that's a policy decision. However, you are only down to 2 appointed people now instead of 4 or 5, so it does
Right.
change the dynamics a bit. But realistically, whatever the board wishes to you know, it's fine. Whatever you want to recommend.
So,
But
Mr.
again,
Hoffman.
it just kind of makes it a little bit obsolete under the change in appointing authorities.
Well, but Mr. Hoffman, you were asking, you wanted to see a provision in there that no member may also be a member of any other committee, board, or commission, correct?
Well, no, that was, I was looking for that line because that's the point of reference we wanted. We originally
Right.
started the Finance Committee bylaw with. We wanted to
Correct.
have it simple as that. And
Correct.
now with changing this, where there's a member of the select board, member of the school committee, member of the finance committee, there's 3
I
pointed
see.
right there, so I can see why that has been taken out, but
Yeah.
mainly I was just looking for that line that
No.
Mr. Holmes pointed out, that, because I know that we said it was pretty simple. The original discussion we had on the finance committee was, let's just make it simple and copy the capital outlay, and
Right.
I couldn't find that simple line until just now, so
So you're comfortable with this?
I'm comfortable with
Oh,
this, yeah.
okay. All right. Okay, I believe a motion has been made and seconded to approve Article 12, the Capital Outlay Committee bylaw change. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0 unanimously.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome to stay, but,
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
okay, moving along. We now have, I think we've come to the zoning articles. And we have with us tonight Bruce Mackey, who is the chair of the Carver Planning Board. He asked me if we would like him here, and I said it's always good to have someone here to explain things. If anyone has any zoning article questions for Mr. Mackey. I know that we chose to take no action on these at our last meeting. Anyone, Mrs. Bogart.
What happened to the signs bylaw?
I
change?
knew you were going to ask that. It was recommended by town council that we take that off. So, I can't tell you, I was just told by Jim Walsh this morning. So, we could consider that at some other time, maybe at another town meeting, or we could look at it with the bylaw committee.
Why was it recommended to be taken off if it can be looked at in the future?
If we change the wording.
Because the only significant change was, because as of right now, the building inspector or zoning officer, whatever his title is, he's the only one that can take signs down.
Right.
So now that continues. So now, unfortunately, it's fallen on Mr. Walsh a bunch. So now he has,
the building inspector is
No.
still.
Mr. Walsh is not the building inspector.
No.
No, but he
he's not.
has taken on.
That was before. This is now.
No, the building inspector will still do that. I think part of the problem was why these signs weren't taken down quickly enough was because the building inspector's part-time.
Right.
And so.
Also because he was unable to be here in person.
Right. So, because of the COVID. So, but there is talk that we may get a full-time building inspector. So that may help the problem, but we can discuss it. I'm not exactly sure why council asked us to pull the article, but I have to discuss that with Jim some more. But like I said, we have the bylaw review committee. We can take a look at it that way, or we can look at it at the planning board level. One or
Because I know the main point was just to alleviate the building commissioner of responsibility by allowing other town employees to do that. That didn't seem like something
it was
legally
fine.
controversial.
Yeah, it was fine with me, but the town council, I don't really want to say without not knowing exactly why, but there was some legalities there why they didn't want that to go to town meeting. So it wasn't that I pulled it or Jim, decided not to have it, or the planning board. We were told by town council, so.
I'd love to know the reason.
Yeah.
So, Mrs. Bogart, we can consider it a gift
Yeah.
because the zoning bylaw review committee can look at it.
No comment.
Yeah, no, the town planner advised us to remove these, so I'm not sure exactly what part of the advice that he received directly from council in following up, so I.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. LaFawn. Mr. Belvin.
Yeah, can we get a, find out why for our next meeting, and
Sure.
get an update of why it was
Sure.
pulled? Like I said, things like this, I mean, where we don't have a clear explanation why things happen, I think that's important for the public to know why things happen. Because we'll get asked that and says, hey, well, why did this get pulled? I don't know. And then unfortunately Bruce gets here and he don't know. So, and it's nothing to do with you, it's just that, like I said, we need communication here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we can move on now to the articles, the zoning articles on the warrant, if anyone has any.
We doing this each one?
Whatever questions you have for Mr. Mackey, we did not vote on these last time, and he's been kind enough to be here with us tonight for questions.
Okay, so I thought we'd have like guidance here. We'll go through Article 20 first or whatnot. All right, so under this large-scale solar mount here, Article 20 that we have, do you have this one here with you? All right, it goes down and it says that if it's under 250 kilowatts or greater covering 1 acre or more of land, okay, you're subject to this bylaw. Anything under an acre or under the 250, there's no provision at all. Anyone can do anything they want
It doesn't come
On their
to
property.
It doesn't come to the planning board. It just, the building inspector takes a look at that. But I can give you a little background, and that's part of it. You know, Jim's run into these things along with the building inspector, you know, problems. And so for the large-scale ground-mounted solar projects, what he did here was to, you know, first we started with the ground-mounted. At the very beginning, those were the type of systems that were coming to us, coming to the planning board. And then later on, we got the elevated ones where the dual use, where you can get the electricity, plus you can farm cranberries, or we've actually had people come to farm gardens and stuff underneath these things. So, so what he did is we had a set of bylaws for the ground mounted and a set of bylaws for the elevated, and he just kind of combined them together so that they're easier to read, and he created a chart so that they're easy to read, because he keeps getting a lot of questions about this. And so it's just something that's just easier for people to read and interpret. So basically that's why we did that. As far as your question, yes, you know, he was getting questions about, we only deal with the large scale solar facilities, and the smaller ones the planning board doesn't deal with. That's just dealt with by the building inspector.
But there's, with the small one, this is the issue that we're gonna have, is that these small ones that we have, someone who has 2 acres of land and says, well, guess what? I'm gonna throw an extra acre of land or less than an acre, all right, for solar, and thus they have a big solar farm in the back of their yard, but it abuts somebody else's property. And there's no screening requirement for it. There's nothing required for that. So I think that there's something that we need to do there to protect residents' homes in residential neighborhoods. And like I said, there's one thing about having them on your roof, all right? My big thing is that away from sight or whatever, but I mean, there's some issues here.
Yeah, well, we're not dealing with that in this bylaw change. I mean, we're just kind of basically just combining the two, making a chart, and just making it easier for people to read and interpret, that's all. I mean, I don't know how they deal with the smaller solar systems. I've never heard of any problems. I don't think that there's a lot of them in town. Most of what we deal with is the large scale, and the large scale is the one that really affects the neighborhoods and people the most when you go for acres and acres of solar systems. So, but I don't know about the smaller ones.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Anyone have any questions under Article 21, solar canopies? Seeing none, how about Article 22, the floodplain district? Article 23, non-medical marijuana overlay district.
I have a question about that one.
Mr. Belbin?
So, when you guys went through this overlay district, when we originally did it, we had a North Carver side and a South Carver side, and now we're looking at getting one in South Carver. We don't have the issue with church anymore down there, so there could be another one there. We're now going ahead and saying that this overlay district is both north and south for either use.
Well, originally, you know, we have an overlay district in the south and we have an overlay district in the north. And the last plan, when we looked at this and presented the article, we were going to do the cultivation, we were going to do the growth and manufacturing in North Carver. And we weren't going to do the retail in North Carver. We thought that it was better to do the retail sales in South Carver. We can only have 2 stores. So now that we've thought about it in this articles, you know, we have this up in place now for a few years. You know, we've had a lot of inquiries about more business in South Carver. So this is what we thought. Since we can only have 2 stores in Carver, it goes by a percentage of the package stores that we have here, so you're only allowed 2 in Carver. So we already have one in South Carver, so we thought maybe we should allow one in North Carver, because it doesn't seem likely that you would have 2 stores side by side selling the same product. It doesn't really make any sense. And then the other thing is that when we originally did this with the last planner, we were thinking of using town water for the growth of the marijuana, but and we thought that the getting water for this would be a problem, so they'd have to use town water. But now we find that the growers say, oh no, we can just put a well in on the property, so there's no problem. We don't have to use town water. So we can also do the growth and manufacturing in South Carver. So in order to make things simplified, we just said, well, why don't we do growth, manufacture, and retail sales in both South and North Carver. So that's basically what we have here. That's what we're proposing.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Any other questions on that article for Mr. Mackey?
Are we gonna recommend these or not, or?
That's up to the board. Last time we decided to take no action on all of these.
Right. I like the old way. I like that we had the split personal of the 2 different sites, and that's my opinion. It was done for a reason, and like I said, without the issue that we had before, I mean, I would have rather seen something done with business district, expanding it in South Carver, but dealing with the non-medical marijuana overlay district, I can't support what's written here. I can't. We worked so hard on the last one, so just my opinion.
Any other comments on Article 23? Okay, moving along. Article 24, definitions townhouse. Any questions on this one? And this is the final version that the planning board approved, Mr. Mackey?
Yes, it is. The definition of the townhouse, we had some problems with that. It said more than 2 but less than 5, so it was kind of unclear whether that's 2 to 5, and so this kind of straightens it out. It does say it's 2 to 5 units that can be placed together. So that was part of it. The other part allows single-family townhouses for over 55. So that was also added to the definition.
Any comments from the board on this? Mr. Belvin?
And that's per 5 acres, correct? It has to be 5 acres. Is that the discussion point?
There's different types, because I knew that you'd be asking these questions, so I kind of went through the bylaw again. And yeah, it starts at 5 acres and it goes up to 20 acres for different types of projects, but it is a special permit. I mean, for somebody to do this for themselves and a family member, just the expense of hiring an engineer and bringing it before the board as a special permit, you know, it just kind of, it's just not a practical thing. I've never seen anybody do this before, so, you know, generally townhouse projects, generally at least 6 units or more. So that's what we've had in town anyway, in a project.
Oh, actually, we've had quite a few, two or more units too. But
well, yeah, those I'm not aware of, but the latest ones that I've dealt with have either been,
right,
you know, 6 units. I mean, they've been 3 and 3,
no,
6.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
yeah.
And
I was talking about in the past.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. Okay, any other comments on this article?
Just had a quick question on that.
Mr. Hoffman?
I know some people have asked me about this, single-family dwelling unit may be allowed for 55 and older.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that's a change to the current, I guess, and I didn't quite do my investigation on this yet, but I'm sure you're up to date on all that. As far as the difference between that and just a single family, if someone wants to put a neighborhood in of single families.
Yeah, well, we did have a bylaw that we came up with for single-family cluster development, and eventually the majority of the board didn't want that. So they thought that, and it was for for a mix of families. It could be over 55, or it could also just be for any age group, and and it mirrored the townhouse bylaw exactly, but it was just for single family development. And I know Mr. Belbin's concerned about development in town that's more affordable, and this does provide more affordable, and even the townhouse development does provide more affordable units. And it provides affordable units too, but the units are much less in price generally than if you buy a house on a lot. I mean, we're seeing new houses sell around $600,000-700,000 now. So, and so we've seen some of these townhouse units go for in the fours. So, and then if we get a bunch of these townhouse units, then we get 10% will be affordable,
Right.
and so those are even less expensive. And to me, this is the best way for the town to provide. One of the best ways for the town to provide for affordable housing, really.
Yeah.
Because if you have a big development of 20, 30, 40 townhouses, then you get 10% of that as affordable. So, and I've never seen, most of our affordables come from, bigger developments like this. So, I think it's a good thing if you're looking for more affordable units.
So the article that was in question was mainly the cluster that was removed from the warrant.
Well, yes, it was the single-family cluster, but
Okay.
like I say, it mirrored the townhouse bylaw, so it didn't allow for any more density. I mean, you still have the same number of units per acre. You have to. There's a formula for figuring out what's upland, what's wetland, and everything else. But it doesn't give you more units than the townhouse bylaw, but it just gave you some single-family homes, and I was speaking to a lot of the older people, including my wife, and she says, "Oh, this sounds nice to have over 55, but instead of having something that's attached, duplex, triplex, quadruplex, pentaplex, just to have your own little home." But not attached to anybody else's, for a retirement type thing, and to cluster them. So it gives all kinds of opportunities for things.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Did you have something else?
No, I just kind of wanted to go. I don't know if you've ever been to Middleborough, the senior homes down there. I can't remember the name.
Oak Point?
Oak Point.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what he's talking about. Oak Point is perfect. There were slabs, houses put on them, and they're not mobile homes. These are stick frame built units, and they're very nice on the inside.
Right.
I went there when they first started after their second phase, and now it's up to phase like 7, I think now.
Yeah.
It's a huge place. So.
Well,
But
yeah,
I understand that's.
Oak Point is just one big village of house and top of house
Yeah.
on top of house. But we were thinking more for Carver to do like a cluster, like you have a road go up, and then you have roads go off to the side that are cul-de-sacs, and then you have a few homes off the cul-de-sac or something like that. Make it more village style instead of army barrack style. Although
Yeah.
Oak Point, the homes are very nice. I mean, I've been inside the homes. They're
Yeah.
beautiful inside.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mr.
thank
Mackey,
you.
for joining
Thank
us
you.
tonight.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask for like a minute and a half break, if I may, before
Can
we
I
move on to
just say
business.
one thing quick?
After the break?
All right, fine.
So, Mr. LaFawn, you said we have missed a couple of articles.
Yes, I've got 7, 8, and 10.
7, 8, and 10. Okay, I apologize for that. 7 is the Community Preservation Committee report and recommendations. And the Community Preservation Committee has voted in favor, 8-0. Is there a motion and a second?
A motion to recommend.
I'll second that.
Thank you both. Is there any further discussion on Article 7? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, the motion passes 4-1-0 to recommend. Yeah, okay. Article 8, the Plymouth Street Waterline Extension. Is there a motion and a second?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Thank you both. Motion made and seconded to recommend Article 8, Plymouth Street Waterline Extension. Any further discussion? Mr. Townsend.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. LaFond, just the number here, the $500,000, that's more than adequate to.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
the accomplish
includes,
that we
in
need.
fact, Jim had asked for, distribute some information this evening, which includes the bid results from March 8th. And as you can see, the low bidder was Oliveira Construction, so that's and they've, the engineering firm, Prime Engineering, has done their due diligence to determine they are qualified and their references, et cetera. So $500,000 obviously leaves some funds there for all our 19 hookups. The number that we have from our, from Prime Engineering is an estimate of $5,000 per home for 19 to decommission wells and hook them up. Obviously, there's a buffer between that to make sure that we shouldn't have to come back for any additional funding.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Madam Chair.
Anyone else?
Go ahead.
Mr. Hoffman?
Got a quick question, through you to Mr. LaFawn.
Thank you.
The, originally we had talked about with the bid, as far as the curb stops, was that included in the original bids?
Yes, there are curb stops. There are 19 curb stops, yes.
Okay, so that wasn't gonna be in it, because I think originally we thought there was gonna be an addition.
Yeah, it's the connections, that's what I'm,
Okay,
maybe misunderstood it, yeah, because the connections is what the additional money is between 353 and 500. So to connect to each home and decommission their wells.
so the 354,000 includes
The-
curb stops for all 19 homes?
That is correct, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Belbin?
Just to let people know that the bid came in at $353,637.35.
That's
just
correct.
for the water line going through, and the connection is, we're asking for 500,000, and the extra is to help hook everything up, all 19 houses, just to put some context in finances here.
Well, the bid for 353,637.35 was not just for the line, but also for the curb stops.
Yes, that's all part of the,
That's
Correct.
all part of it.
Mhm.
correct, yes.
But the rest of the money is to actually hook up everyone. So there could be some surplus after,
It's
maybe.
possible.
Maybe.
It's possible, right? I wouldn't go that far just yet, Bob.
Yeah.
That's all.
Have we already contacted all of the residents? I know that was one of the things that we had asked the last meeting, to send a letter out to see who's gonna wanna hook up.
Yeah,
Does that
we're
happen?
actually going to do that after town meeting. The reason for that is because with DEP wishes to join us, they want to have resources there to explain to all these people, the 19 residents, why they not just why they should, but that they really need to. Because realistically, if they're not going to do that and take advantage of the remedy that the town is offering, that they're probably going to be in trouble at some point in terms of their septic system requirements. That are simply not going, or not septic system, their private well requirements. Right. So they would like to be part of that, but that's not going to happen until after the appropriation.
So DEP's gonna be at town meeting too, to help.
They've offered to be there if we feel we might need some technical assistance. So we do have somebody who is prepared to show up if necessary, but they just need me to confirm that that we'd like them to do that. So I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah,
too.
we have 2 people, one in particular who is already offered to be here.
Mhm. I think it's a good
I
idea.
agree.
We had a Zoom meeting last week with DEP, the local office. Kevin obviously was unable to attend, and at that time they did offer to be of some assistance at town meeting and beyond.
Yeah, I think that they should be asked if that's
Sure.
what
Well,
the board wants.
Someone's on standby, so I will be
Good.
ensure
Okay.
that we have somebody there.
Yeah, because there'll be questions, and rightly so.
Could be.
Okay. So, have we voted on this article yet, Mrs. Weston? Okay. So there's been a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of Article 8, Plymouth Street Waterline Extension, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 5-0. And what was the other one, Elaine? Number 10. Oh, right. Article 10 is the Select Board bylaw change. Is there a motion and a second on this article?
Can I just point out one thing real quick that
Well, let's just get a second first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. LaFawn.
No, the section here that there was some confusion over. Why is this statement about the town administrator appointing an inspector of wires in this part of the warrant?
Mhm.
I mean, in this bylaw? Well, Greg Corbo, Attorney Corbo, has informed me that the law does require that it be specified specifically who appoints an inspector of wires. It's probably a statute that goes back to the 1700s. So that's why, whether or not you'd like to leave that the same or include the select board as the appointing authority is completely up to you, but that's why that's why it was in there,
Okay,
so.
thank you. So there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Belvin?
So currently the inspector of the wire is our electrical inspector, correct?
Mhm, That's correct.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So, I mean, he's an hourly employee, or, I mean, because we may get another one whatever his term of office, because inspector of wires has no term
Right.
for
it's
it.
just-
So,
Right.
if he should leave, then we get another one, then we have to,
And somebody
appoint.
would need to appoint, right?
we
Right.
will have to appoint him
Right,
again.
so either it's, you leave it
we
the
have
way
to
it
keep
is,
track of that,
or you keep whatever you choose to do, yeah.
okay?
So is everyone on board with leaving it as the select board shall appoint? I guess so. So there's a motion been made and seconded to approve Article 10, Select Board Bylaw Change. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. And so that's it for the articles. Is that correct? Sorry? 21. Is solar canopies. Well, last time we voted to take no action on I believe, all of the planning board articles.
Yes, I believe that was.
I think so. I'd have to check the minutes, but
Double check,
I mean, the board is certainly able to vote on this if they so choose.
yeah. Yes, no, the board, I believe the board did defer to the planning board on these,
Mm-hmm.
no action.
So are there any more? Mrs. Weston? No. Okay.
That's it.
All right.
I just
Thank-
have one
thank
thing
you all
concerning
for that.
the whole warrant.
I'm sorry, Mr.
I
Belvin?
just have one thing about the warrant here. I just want to make sure that the information that we put out is correct. Once the town clerk attests that the signatures here are there and she attests to it, we cannot sign this after. It's illegal for us to sign it. It wouldn't be right, because then we're putting her in jeopardy. So we can't sign this once it's attested to by the town clerk. We can't sign it. We can't do anything. Just want to make sure it's clear.
So are you referring to the version that was posted?
The warrant that's here, the signature.
We have not signed this warrant yet. That is the signature for it having been posted.
Right.
This
But
is not the
we
final
can't-
version.
We can't sign that. I'm just letting you know we can't sign that.
Mr. LaFawn, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure exactly what, I'd have to speak to Bob more to understand exactly what his issue is here.
Okay.
No, I don't want to say something that,
No, that's
not-
fine.
that's not accurate.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I guess it's your turn, Mr. LaFawn?
Yes,
Town Administrator update?
Keep this as brief as, I think we already discussed enough about the Plymouth Street water line.
Mm-hmm.
You've made your recommendations, Finance Committee's made their recommendation. We feel comfortable we have enough funding in there for 19 hookups, and I assume town meeting will agree with that. The funds will be coming from the Capital Debt Stabilization Fund. CARES Act update, we received a third award this past week. Unfortunately, it's not what we were hoping for. It was for expenses we had submitted on behalf of Old Colony Regional VOTEC. We were told we were going to have 4 and 5 sent to us or approved by the end of March, and that hasn't happened yet. Now we're told it will be next week. So we actually have another request going in this week for about $10,000, relatively small. So we should have we'll still have about $350,000 worth of capacity. But as I say, it's a little bit frustrating. I know Meg spoke to Tom O'Brien last week, and I he's calling me back this week himself. Unfortunately, it's all I can report at the moment.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, minutes, licenses, topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. The next meeting is the annual town meeting, April 13th, 2021, and our next regularly scheduled meeting is scheduled for April 20th, 2021. The minutes of March 2nd, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes of March 2nd, 2021, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Minutes of March 10th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you both. It's been a motion made. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes of March 10th, 2021, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Minutes of March 16th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Okay, I have one quick change on page 1. And I'm sorry I didn't get this to you sooner, but it's real easy, Mrs. Weston. Under Conservation Commission warrant article bylaw amendment, the third paragraph that starts with motion by Hoffman. The sentence, I think it's the third sentence down, Hewen stated that there is an agricultural exemption. That should be amended to read, Hewen stated there's an agricultural exemption in state law. And that's my only amendment. Maybe we could get an amended motion.
Motion to approve as amended.
Thank you.
second that.
Thank you. Motion's been made to approve as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Minutes of March 24th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't there.
Okay. So that's
Is that the one I missed? Two?
that's 401. It passes.
That's right.
Thank you for that. Request for Cape Cod Getaway MS Bike Ride 710 2021. We have some information in our packets on that, but I believe the police chief has been waiting quite a bit to talk to us about this. No? Yes?
It's a very long one. We've done it several times.
Wait a minute. Can you say that into the microphone, chief? Sorry.
I wasn't actually waiting to talk about this,
Oh.
but it's a. May I take this off?
Yes.
It's a very normal thing. They've done it several years. No issues. They hire police details. It does add to the traffic a little bit, but we get them through too.
Great. Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you both. Motion's been made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Select Board Community Announcements. Mr. Belbin?
Yeah, just to let people know, the Waste District, we are doing a auction. That auction of all of our equipment that we don't use or have no use for. I'll be posting that on our website tomorrow with the location. It's going to be an online auction, and I'll post it on the Facebook pages also that are typically done. So keep a lookout for it. It's mostly big equipment. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Belbin. Mrs. Bogart?
All right, this is like a good news, bad news one. Bad news, there's a lot of trash around town, a lot of litter. Good news, a lot of people on the two most popular Carver Facebook groups have been posting pictures of themselves going around town on their own picking up the litter. There is a woman who seems to be spearheading the effort named Eileen Paradise, and she had a post on Everything Carver trying to formalize something to kind of get this going. And I think it's an awesome idea. And I would encourage anyone and everyone to either reach out to her, become part of it, or just do your part. And that'll get into my member notes too. But check out Eileen Paradise's post on Everything Carver. I fully support her efforts.
Thank you, Mrs. Bogart. Mr. Hoffman.
Just wanted to remind everybody that the Cane Strong Golf Tournament will be May 15th at the Bay Point Golf Course. And the golf portion is filled up, but we are still accepting hole sponsors and raffle items. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Townsend.
I have nothing this evening.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to remind people that the annual town meeting is coming up. It's next Tuesday, April 13th, and it begins at 7 p.m. at the Carver Middle High School. For those of you who are listening and watching this at home, this is as much, the annual town meeting is your meeting as much as it is ours, and we hope you can make it. Also, reminder that the town election is April 24th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that also matters. Your local election is very important. And I certainly hope you will show up and vote. Thanks. Select Board notes. Mrs. Bogart.
I'm up again. All right, so it's springtime, yard sales are starting. I had put this on member notes, I think, in the fall, but it seems appropriate to bring it back up now. A lot of towns I know do townwide yard sales. I would love to see us organize something too. So I am going to look into that because I know other towns do, and I would love to bring information back to the board at a future meeting with propositions on how we could do it, because it would be awesome and it could be COVID safe and it would be great. And then number 2, going back, I would love to see a community cleanup day, kind of town-wide. I know Earth Day's coming up. We probably can't do it before then. I don't know the logistics, how involved we could be and make it general, or just kind of be like, hey, everybody, we're all going to go clean up and we encourage everyone to go pick up stuff. I don't know how it would work, but I would love us to brainstorm a way to do it, because this is our town. There's trash. It's funny that Miss Paradise popped up. We need to take care of our town. So I would love us to try to think of something. We only have one Earth.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Bogart. And now I will need a motion to convene into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to non-union contract negotiations if the chair so declares, as discussing this matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining position, proposed deputy police chief contract, and not to return to open session.
So moved.
Second that.
Thank you. How do you vote, Mr. Belbin?
Robert Belbin, aye.
Jen Bogart, aye.
Mark Townsend, aye.
Jim Hoffman, aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye. Thank you. That's it for our open meeting. Thank you.